The airport buzzed with activity until one voice cut through the chaos, a woman demanding a first-class seat she didn't have. What happened next? A single announcement from the gate agent would turn the entire situation on its head. After all, the long hours spent in airports could be stressful, but at least the first-class perks made the experience more tolerable. They were grateful for the quiet cabin, the better food, the plush seat, and the space to stretch out while they waited for the flight to depart. For the protagonist, flying first class was an opportunity to escape the chaos of the economy class. They could retreat into a book or just relax, watching the world pass by outside the small window. But today, there was something different in the air, a sense of tension building slowly, like a storm cloud gathering just beyond the horizon. It all started when a woman approached the gate, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. She was middle-aged, dressed in a loud, expensive outfit. A pair of oversized sunglasses perched on her nose despite the cloudy day. The protagonist barely glanced up, thinking she was just another passenger, until they heard her voice cut through the noise of the terminal. "I demand to speak to someone right now. This is unacceptable." The gate agent, a young woman with short black hair and a calm demeanor, turned to address the situation. The protagonist watched as Karen, as they would later come to call her, stood with an air of entitlement, her arms crossed in defiance. "I am a VIP," Karen declared, her voice ringing through the terminal. "I deserve to sit in first class. What is this nonsense about my seat being downgraded? I'm not flying in economy." The gate agent, who had remained polite and professional throughout Karen's outburst, responded calmly. "Ma'am, your seat assignment is in economy. I understand that this might be frustrating, but there's nothing I can do about it right now." But Karen was having none of it. "You don't understand," she continued, her voice rising. "I have a history with this airline. I fly first class all the time. I deserve better treatment than this. I will not sit in economy. Change it now." A small crowd began to gather, intrigued by the commotion. Some passengers who were seated nearby started recording the scene on their phones. The gate agent, clearly used to handling difficult situations, tried to de-escalate things. "Ma'am, please calm down. I'm sure we can find a solution, but you need to speak to customer service when you board." Karen's face reddened, and she threw her hands up in frustration. "I don't want to talk to customer service. I want my seat, right here, in first class. Do you know who I am?" The gate agent shook her head and stepped back, likely assessing how far Karen would take this. At that moment, the protagonist leaned back in their seat, wondering if the situation would get resolved without escalating further. But things only took a turn for the worse. Karen, now clearly enraged, turned her attention to the protagonist, who had been watching the spectacle unfold. "Why are you just sitting there? Are you going to let this woman ruin your flight? Tell her to give me your seat," she demanded. The protagonist, caught off guard, sat up straight. "I am afraid I can't do that," they replied, trying to keep the situation from getting more complicated. "I've already been assigned this seat. You should give it to me." Karen snapped. "I'm a VIP. I should be sitting in first class, not you." The gate agent stepped in, attempting once again to calm Karen down. "Ma'am, I've asked you to stop. If you don't calm down, I'll have to call security." But Karen wasn't done yet. With an exaggerated flourish, she began to loudly accuse the airline of mistreating its best customers. "This airline has the worst customer service. I've flown with you for years, and this is how you treat me. I demand a refund, and I will be telling everyone how terrible this company is," she yelled, drawing the attention of even more passengers. The protagonist felt their anxiety rising. This wasn't just a minor disturbance anymore. It was becoming a spectacle, one that might ruin the calm of their much-needed first-class experience. They could feel the eyes of the other passengers on them, and the tension in the air was palpable. Just when it seemed like things were about to spiral further, something unexpected happened. The gate agent, who had remained poised throughout the confrontation, suddenly grabbed the microphone on the counter. The announcement that followed left the entire terminal silent. "We have an important announcement for our first-class passengers. Please escort the pilot to his seat immediately." The words hung in the air for a moment, leaving everyone in the terminal confused. The protagonist, along with the rest of the crowd, glanced around in bewilderment. What was happening? The words didn't make sense. It wasn't time for the pilot to board yet, and there was no reason for an escort. Everyone was expecting the usual announcement for the flight to board. But this was different. Karen, ever the entitled figure, took the microphone announcement as a personal affront. "What kind of nonsense is that?" she grumbled, looking even more outraged.
That better not be a mistake.
I'm not leaving this gate until I'm seated in first class. It was then that the protagonist noticed something strange happening. The gate agent, still calm but resolute, signaled to a nearby security officer, who approached Karen with an air of quiet authority. The officer, who had been standing by and observing, gestured for Karen to follow him. "Ma'am, please come with me," the security officer said firmly. Karen's expression twisted from confusion to shock. "What? Why are you escorting me?" "I don't need anyone to escort me. I demand to be let into first class. I'm a VIP," she shouted again, but her voice wavered, betraying a hint of uncertainty. The officer did not respond to her pleas. He simply motioned for her to follow him, and when Karen hesitated, he placed a hand on her arm, guiding her away from the gate area. As the situation began to resolve, the protagonist, along with several others, watched in stunned silence.
Karen, now realizing she was being escorted out of the first-class area, continued to protest, but her voice grew quieter the further she was led away. "What's happening?" a fellow passenger asked, voicing the confusion that hung in the air.
"Why is she being escorted out?"
The gate agent, still calm, answered with a smile. "She's been flagged. Unfortunately, some passengers with a history of causing disruptions are not allowed in certain areas." The protagonist let out a sigh of relief.
It seemed the airline had handled this situation with the professionalism and care it deserved. As the flight began to board, the tension that had been thick in the air seemed to evaporate. The plane took off without incident, and the protagonist settled into their seat, grateful for the peace that had been restored.
They couldn't help but reflect on what they had just witnessed, a reminder that entitlement could only go so far before reality caught up with it. Over the course of the flight,
the protagonist overheard snippets of conversation from fellow passengers who had seen the confrontation. Some commented on how it had been handled professionally, while others couldn't believe the audacity of Karen's behavior. The protagonists smiled to themselves, knowing that no matter how much someone believed they deserved special treatment,
there were rules for a reason. When they finally landed at their destination,
the protagonist couldn't shake the feeling of gratitude that lingered.
They had witnessed a lesson in humility, and it made them appreciate the calm professionalism of the airline staff even more.
They left the airport with a sense of closure, the memory of the incident still fresh in their mind. In the end, the entire episode had served as a reminder that respect, not entitlement, was the true key to a smooth journey. The protagonist walked away from the experience with a renewed sense of appreciation for the small, everyday moments that often went unnoticed, like the professionalism of the people who kept things running smoothly,
even when confronted with the most difficult of passengers. And as they stepped into the bustling city,
they knew one thing for sure: the story of the Karen and her demand for a first-class seat would stay with them for a long time, a reminder of the chaos that can unfold when one person forgets the most important rule of all: respect.